If you see the red button recording, that means we are recording this. I have to record it for future sessions for parents who may not have the time to be able to join us this evening. So we are being recorded. I just wanted to let you know that ahead of time. My name is Maura McKinnon. I am a teacher here at South Mecklenburg High School. I'm heading into my 11th year at South Meck. I teach a course called Honors, Leadership, and Learning. And what it began as was a course that I developed strictly in regards to peer tutoring and helping each other out during the school day, has now turned into a complete passion of mine in terms of social justice issues that we incorporate into the course as well. So what I'm going to do this evening is I'm going to share the screen in a minute, and then I'm going to share with you a Google slide presentation that I created. I will go through the entire slide presentation, and then at the end, there is time for a Q&A. Don't think this will take the full hour, so here we go. I'm about to share. Okay, if you can all just give me a thumbs up that you can see my screen, I'd really appreciate it. Thumbs up, yes, perfect. Okay, so here we go. All right, that's myself and Mr. Starnes. He may be jumping in at some point, so he and I collaborated with this. I'm just gonna do one slide at a time, I won't play it. So one of the things that Mr. Starnes I know is very passionate about is relationships. And he's really big on building relationships, not just between staff, but between students as well, and between staff and students to students. So you know as well as I do, with a school as large as we have, with 3,400 students this upcoming year, it is one of our goals to make it feel like, you know, a small town in terms of some of the relationships we build. So his goal is relationships before rigor, grace before grades, patience before programs, and love before lessons. And he took this from a Dr. Brad Johnson. And I've seen this going around the internet recently as well. Okay, so what is advisory? Advisory is a time and place to build a positive school culture. I'm sure you know as parents, as well as I do as a parent and a teacher here at South Meck, it is go, 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 go. It is first block 6 minutes, get second block 6 minutes, get third block 6 minutes, go to lunch for 20 minutes, back, fourth block, and we don't have enough time in the day to build relationships with our students. So we want to make sure that we make time to do that. It is a 45-minute period. It is required both virtually and when we come back in person. This is required, mandatory. We will begin this coming Monday. So it is a period between first and second block. So the kids will all go to first block, and then they will go right to advisory, and then they'll go to second block, third block, and then fourth block. So what are we doing in advisory? We have opportunities to focus on building relationships, community team building, student belonging, social justice issues, life skills, and more. And let me just give you a very brief story. Several years ago, and I'm very fortunate, I mean, your kids are phenomenal, and I had a young man come in who had received full scholarships to you name it, and he had all of these full scholarships to college. He ended up going to Morehouse. He came in one morning really flustered, didn't know what to do, and when he got flustered, he would always start whispering. And so I went up to him and I said, okay, what's going on? He was whispering and I couldn't hear him. I'm like, you need to tell me what's going on. And all I heard was my car. And the first thought was, oh my gosh, you got into an accident. And so I said, are you okay? What happened? And he said, well, it was about my car. And then he went into a whole story about, I was trying to call my dad, but dad wasn't picking up. And then I was trying to call mom because parents are divorced, trying to call mom, but she wasn't picking up. And then I tried calling dad again. And my stepmom picked up and she was really upset because I woke up the baby. And I said, well, how old is the baby? 2 weeks old. I go, what happened to your car? And he said, defrosting. It needed to be defrosted. And I looked at him and I said, you don't know how to defrost your car? And he said, no, I don't. So I told him what to do, and then he stormed out and went out to tutor. But we're not doing these kids justice in terms of graduating high school and having some of the life skills that they need to have in order to be prepared for beyond high school. So that's just my little story on the side. all CMS schools are incorporating advisory. So across the board, every CMS school will have an advisory period. Obviously, it'll look different depending on the age level, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school. Advisory at South Meck will be taught by South Mecklenburg High School teachers. So for instance, I have an English background, I'm an English teacher, but I will have an advisory. Our world languages teachers will have an advisory. Our history teachers will have advisory, and so forth. So every teacher here will have an advisory, and they will be required to teach during their advisory programs. So some of the other things that are really going to be good for these kids are push-in opportunities for student services and our student success team. And I'll get into that a little further on. Just so you know, as parents, and as a parent, I would want to know this too, advisory will be inclusive of all grade levels. So for my advisory specifically, I have kids in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. So all advisories will be all 4 years. So you'll have 9th graders in there, 10th graders in there, 11th graders, and 12th graders. So we're not separating it out to, this is just a 9th grade advisory or a 10th grade or 11th grade. It has a host of our students in there. The other great thing that South Meck is doing is our level 1 and level 2 native Spanish speaking students will be with Spanish speaking teachers who can support their specific needs. And so I think that's really important for the students to make sure that they feel comfortable and are taken care of in their native language. So we have that as well. The next slide is the actual schedule. And you're more than welcome to take screenshots of this. We will be going over this entire presentation again on Monday with all of our students. But so you can see, while we are going virtual, we still have Sabre Sunrise. That's from 7 a.m. to 7:45 a.m. So if your student is struggling in anything, that they can join in to their teacher's Sabre Sunrise. There's first block, and then advisory is there in the bold red. So it's from 9:25, and my picture's cutting off, till 10:10. So we do have advisory every single day. Something you should also be aware of, we do have after-school tutoring hours, and individual teachers will let their students know next week when their tutoring hours are. And just on a side note, that's what I do here. I run the Sabre Peer Tutoring Program, and the students in my program will be tutoring virtually. So I will review that with my kids next week. So just to let you know that as well, parents. The next slide, you know, what are some of the things that we're going to be doing in advisory? Some people are like, this is every day. This is 5 days a week. So it's Monday through Friday, in between first and second blocks. So this is what the first 10 days are going to look like. So on Monday, day 1, again, I'll go through this with the students, and each of the advisory teachers will have a copy of this slide presentation, and they will go through it with their students. We'll go through the what, why, and when on Monday, so that the students are comfortable and prepared for advisory and they know what to do. Day 2, we're going to talk about assessment and grading. So on all 10 of these, teachers have built Google Slides to be able to present to all students during the first 10 days. Day 3, you know, a lot of kids are like, I'm not really comfortable with Canvas. What do I do? How do I get around it? How do I find my quizzes? Where are the assignments? What are announcements? You know, things like that. So we'll have someone go through with them what Canvas is. Day 4, technology etiquette. I know as adults, we have to make sure, you know, we are properly dressed, that we are using the right language, that whether it's in the chat room, we're making sure that we're not doing anything inappropriate, things like that. Day 5, what it means to be a virtual Sabre. So while we are at home, what are the expectations for South Meck students in regards to going virtual? Day 6, we'll go through Title IX, which is required. They do this every single year. Typically, we would do it in all of our homerooms. And although on PowerSchool, it will be listed as homeroom, this block is homeroom/advisory. So day 7, student services will come in. So that's the guidance counselors, our school psychologist, our school social worker. So they'll join in and to tell the students who they are, where they are, and how they can help them. Day 8, digital citizenship. Day 9, Naviance. So Ms. Jarusik is a guru, so she will come in and discuss what Naviance is to the kids and everything that entails with Naviance, what they need to add into it, what kind of tests that they can take in there, college applications and so forth. So that's all about Naviance. Day 10 is athletics and extracurriculars, and I believe our athletic director, Mr. Garcia, will be handling that for the students. And I'm almost positive the following week is completely Naviance. So there's a lot going on there. So your child, by the end of that week, will be a pro at knowing what Naviance is. How do I get my recommendations? Where are they listed? How do I ask teachers to be recommenders for college? Things like that. So I think it's something that they need. All right, other parts of advisory. So personal qualities that are not measured, right? So we come to school and they're doing their math and their science and their history and English and computer science and the foreign language, whatever it might be. They don't have time to relax and to breathe. And so we're hoping what advisory will be, outside of teaching them some of those skills that they'll need the first 10 days, is a chance to breathe and to get to know one another and work forward with all of that. So these are just some of the things we can't give a multiple choice test on. You know, whether or not someone is understanding or trusting or creative or innocent or curious or brilliant, you know, those kinds of characteristics we're not able to test on. What are some of the other things that deal with things that we can't test kids on, right? So, and that we don't want to test kids on? Social and emotional skills that we need to know, and we need to make sure that our children are okay before they graduate high school. We know that before COVID, 1 in 5 of our students had a mental health issue. So 1 in 5. And last year, we only had 1 full-time school psychologist to be able to help 3,400 students. And so we're trying to do the best we can in terms of making sure that our kids are being taken care of socially and emotionally, as well as academically. So we want to make sure that the kids understand what is self-awareness, you know, clear understanding of our own emotions about current events, identities, and implicit bias. Self-management, how do they cope with new stressors? Whether it's, I don't know how to handle, you know, being online the entire time, or that I have, you know, a couple of APs, and how do I manage my time management skills, things like that. Controlling gut reactions. Do I automatically just yell at someone, or do I sit back, relax, and think about it before I speak? And practicing new behaviors. Social awareness, ability to understand historical and social context. You know, things like COVID and what's going on in our own Charlotte community, I think is really important. That's part of some of the things that I do in my own class. Relationship skills, building and maintaining relationships across distance and difference, supporting others in the face of shared trauma and grief, and then responsible decision making. You know, we were all teenagers at one point, and our brains are kind of, you know, light years ahead of where we should probably be thinking. So analyzing the consequences of our leadership moves on the well-being of others. So that's some of the other pieces to advisory. I won't go through all of this, but you can see, you know, self-perception, self-expression, interpersonal, decision-making, stress management, you know, the things that we want to make sure that our kids and our own children know, but we need to make sure that they're being taught properly how to handle these as well. The next step too, and this is a piece of my heart, is that we want to go through social justice issues with students. And again, some of your students, oops, too fast. Some of your students are taking honors leadership and learning. Some of them have, some of them taken online classes, and they've listened to some of the conversations we've had in class. So I'm just going to move this so I can see. Inspire students to navigate the complexities of the world with compassion and empathy. You know, we don't teach our kids enough about how to be compassionate and empathetic towards others. And what I tell my own students is that it's okay to have differing opinions. We all will, but it's not okay to disrespect. And that's my biggest thing. And the other thing I tell my kids is, my kids meaning my students, is that it's really good sometimes and oftentimes to listen to what you believe is the opposite of your own thinking, because sometimes when you listen to the opposite side, you learn things that you wouldn't necessarily have learned before, and it opens your heart, your eyes, your mind to those things. And you think, you know what? Never thought of it in that light before, and that makes sense. Doesn't mean that we have to walk away and change our whole system, but it means that we need to be a little more open and understanding with each other. So staff will engage students in meaningful discussions during the course of the year to promote social justice, challenge bias, and discuss topics of diversity that wouldn't happen otherwise. Things like educational equity, racial justice, facing implicit bias in school. And this is for adults as well, poverty, food insecurity, etc. and identity issues for some of our students and our children. And when I wrote down humanity issues, that's really what it is. This isn't anything political. It's about being good human beings. And how does this affect us at South Meck? How does it affect my community of Pineville, of Charlotte, of North Carolina, of our country? And how does this move us forward globally as well? What I have here is, if you've heard of Brian Stevenson, he's actually the author of a book called Just Mercy, and that's the required read for my course. We are possibly thinking of a whole school book club with Just Mercy, so that all the students would read it during advisory, and I would be more than happy to be able to support and supply anything for those lessons. So this link right here is a link to the Equal Justice Initiative. So that's the EJI, that's the program, the nonprofit program that Brian Stevenson started over 35 years ago. Some people might ask, and myself included, well, I'm an English teacher, so how do I figure out what I'm supposed to teach and how I'm supposed to teach it? There's so much information out there. And three of the pieces that I follow the closest are one called Teaching Tolerance, and you're more than welcome again to take a screenshot of this or write these down, you can look them up. So one is Teaching Tolerance, another one is a local nonprofit called the Echo Foundation, and they did a program, a curriculum a couple of years ago called Charlotte, A Tale of Two Cities. And so it's a whole curriculum in regards to, okay, so how does educational equity and racial justice and implicit bias and poverty, food insecurity, and identity, how does that deal with me specifically in Charlotte? And so if we go through their program, you'll see, Charlotte's the second largest banking and finance industry out of New York City, but we also have a high poverty and low income rate. And so we look at those pieces as well. And another one that I've been introduced to this summer that I like a lot is called Facing History. And one of my all-time favorite quotes is on the bottom of this screen. If I can move that. Knowledge. So if we're knowledgeable on some of these issues and we become empathetic, it causes us to act, which then equals justice. And then I'm just going to show, I have 3 videos here, but I'm just going to show the last one. And I'm going to ask you for a thumbs up. I did put the sound on, so I'm hoping you will be able to hear it as soon as I play it. So it'll give you a better idea visually of what we hope to have advisory look like and sound like. Now the video will be K through 12, so you'll see all different aspects of it, but again, CMS is incorporating advisory K through 12, so there'll be some high school pieces to this as well.
Anything else special happened this weekend, friends?
In the pool, I did a cannonball. I know how to swim. You know how to swim? I do. Blow bubbles underwater.
You
Me
do?
too.
As human beings, one of the most essential needs we have is the need to belong. In school, children need a sense of belonging to be able to be productive learners. They need to be connected to their fellow students, connected to their teachers, to also be affirmed in who they are in a way that is positive and accepting. In a belonging classroom, there's a community being explicitly built. The teacher knows each child and things about each of those children that they can mention and draw on.
I pay attention, I listen. I'm really invested in what they tell me. The students feeling loved, students feeling nurtured, students feeling like they have a place at school, they're safe. It activates their brain cells. What side would you do?
Sense of belonging is one of the most important activators of a child's engagement in learning. Everything about activating a child's cognitive skills begins with activating their social connectedness. The energy for learning is coming from the social connection that children have.
But in the end, we're trying to come up with an agreement.
Excellent. We're not going to comment, question. We're only going to encourage. Because they're culturally and linguistically diverse students, I want to really make sure that we are making them feel connections. All the writing we do in our class, it's very much about them. It helps and promotes them to find their own voice and to share their stories.
Sometimes people think every Muslim person is a target or is a terrorist.
Thank you, Anissa.
What did the to show us about what we are good at as a group.
Working together, because like we often argue a lot. But
today we did an activity that was really designed to get them thinking about how they're going to support each other. I think that reiterating the idea that we're in this together, I think it's hard to find the time, but doing some team building exercises at the beginning of the year and revisiting them can really help illustrate that point.
In a belonging classroom, they have a community that may meet in classroom meetings to problem solve together, to read stories together, to tell successes and accomplishments or important events together. They celebrate like families do, things that each other have done or have experienced.
Let's talk about what we admire about some of our friends.
I admire Zara because she is so compassionate.
And where we're talking about being compassionate and being supportive of one another, it's to build that deeper connection for everyone, just to feel like this is their school family, this is somewhere they're loved, they're nurtured, they're taken care of, they're valued.
Thank you for speaking.
The community becomes a place where you can bring your emotions, your fears, your needs. You can be honest about what's going on and know that there will be acceptance, support, and love that's available to carry you through.
We all can work together and we all can try to strategize together and create a better pathway for others to be successful. And we can make it fun.
They're working together. They take care of each other, not just personally, but academically.
We're always pushing each other.
I found this the other day, actually this morning when I woke up. The 3 most important school supplies for the new school year is patience, flexibility, and grace. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and put you all back on and see if anybody has any questions. Thumbs up if you can all hear me. Okay, so I know that people can hear me. Let me just tell you my takeaway from that video, and that's what I was typing on my phone really quickly while I was listening to it, was feeling safe, social connections, encouraging one another, finding their voices, sharing their stories, working together, supporting each other, team building, building a school family, feeling valued, acceptance, support, and love. So that in a nutshell, the first 10 days, we're going to help them with what they need to know for the first 10 days in terms of Canvas and support systems and things like that. And after that, we're really going to push it out to a possible whole school book club with Just Mercy or another book of a social justice type, and then really work with them to build that safe school feeling for them. Does anybody have any questions? Well, that's all I have for this evening, folks. So unless you have questions, you are free to go. Thanks everyone for joining.